I just want to take a moment to thank the two members that are on stage for us. They've been great volunteers and are heavily involved in Homes on Wheels Alliance, and I want to introduce to you. Hi. Merle is over here on this side. She's been a nomad for, let's see, was it 3? Somewhere in the 4 to 5 year range. And Brian is really heavily involved in Howie. You may have seen him in some of Bob's videos. He's given Bob a hand with some stuff, and he's been nomading for 12 years. Long enough, he's got it down. So he's here to share, they're both here to share their knowledge about work camping and how that's worked for them. Give them a welcome, thanks.
Might help if I turned it on, I guess. Hi everybody, welcome. I think this is a good sound. Well, we are so glad that you guys were able to join us today. Today we're going to be obviously talking about work camping, some different options out there, as well as going into a little bit of details on it. In the end, we'll bring up a bunch of questions. People can come up to the microphone and ask their questions of us, and we'll do the best that we can to answer those. But you know, we know what we know, but hopefully through the community we can answer any other questions that you guys might have. So just by a quick show of hands, who here has work camped in the past? And a smattering. All right, a few people out there. Who here is interested in work camping? Okay, and the rest of you guys are just here just for the socialization. That's excellent. So, well, welcome everybody, and we hope that we can answer some of your questions today if you are interested in work camping. So the first thing I want to tell you, like some people may say, what is work camping? Work camping is a typically seasonal, short-term job opportunity. It could be volunteering or it could be a paid position. So you have both varieties out there. But again, it's usually seasonal, and it's anywhere probably between 15 hours a week up to 40 hours a week. And then that's pretty much it. Do you have anything that you want to add to that, Merle?
Also, in terms of payment, depending on the state, it may be hourly or it may be a monthly gig. Depending on the group that you work for, your site may or may not be included. Propane may or may not be, water, etc. The group I worked for, they gave me a propane stipend, they delivered water to me every day, and I did not have to pay for my site. But that's not true in every case. So when you're looking at a job, you have to make sure that you go through all these things that are important to you, and you clarify them before you take the job.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll concur with that. It's I've had sites that I've worked for the same company for 12 seasons, and some of my sites had full hookups. Most of the time I just had most of the time I had 0 hookups. So it really just depends what's important to you. So definitely ask those clarifying questions and make sure it is a good fit for you. So let's go into the benefits of work camping. So why do we work camp? I like it because I need money, honestly. So it's one of the things that I do for employment. Some of the other benefits, go ahead.
And I started out doing it because I wanted to see a different part of the country. A friend called me up and said, do you want to do this thing with me? Let's go to Idaho. And off I went. And that was the start of, my journey, if you will. So that's a perfectly valid reason to work. It's an easy way to see different parts of the country, especially if you're with a company that will take you to different states like I was.
Yeah, and that's one of the main reasons I do it, is I want to go explore a certain area. So that's one of the benefits for me, is that you get to see different parts of the country. So if there's an area that you want to go get a job up there. And if you're there for, most of the commitments are 1 to 6 months. So in that time, you can really check out an area and really explore the beautiful mountains. That's the other thing. Most of these jobs are in beautiful areas, so it's not a bad place to be. Another benefit, I think, is that my motorhome only gets 5 or 6 miles per gallon. If I can sit still for 6 months out of the year in a campground and not pay for that gas, I am making money that way. It is such a boon for me.
And another benefit is the people that you meet. I still am friends with people I had as campers, and still friends with people I worked with alongside as camp hosts. I mean, really, you get to know people very deeply when you're with them, 6 months out of the year, and you're working right next to it. The people were delightful. I didn't have maybe a handful of really bad experiences. Not even a handful, maybe a couple. You get to know the people, and you make some lifelong friends.
Yeah, absolutely. You make so many bonds, and you not only with your coworkers, but you have return campers. Both Merle and I went to the same campground at least 2 years,
Yeah,
right?
2 years in a row, and I had families that looked for us specifically. Oh, you're going to be there, great, and come celebrate the birthdays with us, and here's a gift, and we're so happy to see you. And we were an important feature of their family vacation every year.
Absolutely, yeah. It was fun coming back every year, and you'd be like, "Oh, hey, Brian, how's it going?" And and it builds that community, and it's nice to see them, and you can catch up. It's just amazing. The other thing I love about work camping is it's active. If I didn't work camp and wasn't forced to walk around every day, I wouldn't. And so it was nice because you are off doing something, you just keep moving, and I love that aspect of it. It's just enjoyable.
Yeah, and you have a purpose, and I'm retired, and I could just sit and do nothing and just kind of hang out and make my own days, but it's nice to have a purpose. It's nice to be able to get up in the morning and say, oh, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and it made me happy, fulfilled me.
Absolutely, because I usually take my winters off, and I'm always looking forward to going back in the summer, because again, it gives you that purpose, it gives you that schedule, and as I mentioned, it gives you money. That was also very important to me, so kind of needed that. And I did it for 12 years, and I did very little work besides work camping, and I was able to survive my winter on those savings and then just work 4 to 6 months out of the year. The rest of the year I would just take off. So you can make enough money to survive, essentially, and I even made a little bit more than just surviving, for sure. But it is a fine way of doing things. You can also, if you are on a Social Security or disability, you can also work camp up to a certain point, is my understanding. So if you just need a little extra funds, it's a good way of doing it. All right, so next we're going to say, all right, what options are out there? We hear about this work camping thing, but there are many, many, many options. Merle and I have similar experiences as far as we were both work campers in a campground. So we were campground hosts. I was in mostly California, a summer in Colorado, and 2 summers in Oregon. But there are many, many other options besides campground hosting. But let's talk about camp hosting first, because that's just what we know.
Yeah, so camp hosting involves, I worked in a very busy, very, very popular area of Idaho, Redfish Lake. There were 6 or 7 different campgrounds all scattered around the lake. It was the family destination for Idaho, crazy busy. I never stopped working for about the 6 weeks of the really high point. Each campground, I was either probably 4 to 6 weeks. It was the super busy time. Lots of them, I think all of yours were reservation.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between the walk-in and the reservations. Mine were first come, first serve, so handling that was an extra duty. You have to figure out who's going where, keep track of who's going in, who's going out, and whether or not you're going to have openings. Reservations.
Yeah, reservations are a little different. I had a little bit of both, but a lot of them were reservation. It's more paperwork, but it's a little easier as well, because you're not having to figure out, is there an open spot? Is there this? Is there that? You just, okay, you're in site number 12, go right ahead and go to your site. So there is some, it's just different. I wouldn't say it's any easier or harder, but there are extra steps for both of them.
I mean, if you're doing a first come, first serve, I had people lining up at 7 o'clock in the morning, waiting to get in. And I had to make them wait until 11 when it was checkout to make sure that people were checking out. It was a little balancing act. It was kind of fun. I got to be the hero, you know. I got to be like, yes, you have a seat, and really made their day. They were happy. So, but it was a little bit of a juggling act.
You're like a game host, a game show host.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, you're a winner. Yes.
Exactly.
Come on up.
You're a winner. You're a winner. I had somebody leave early. Come on down. Oh.
So in regards to campground hosting, because again, that's what we can speak mostly to, there are different options out there. So we both worked for a National Forest campground. We worked for a concessionaire of the National Forest. So we didn't work directly for the Forest Service or the government. We worked for a private company that was just running these campgrounds. But you could also work at state parks. You can work at private parks as well, and some of these are going to be paid positions, and as Merle alluded to earlier, some of them are volunteer, so maybe they are just in exchange for a free place to stay, which isn't a bad deal because again, you're not moving.
Required
so
20 hours a week for $800 a month, which worked out to be about $10 an hour.
And then someone asked about the rigs, and we will have a question and answer section at the end, but we'll go ahead and answer some of these now because they're relevant. As far as type of rig, it really depends on your employer. I think officially the company I worked for, they say you had to have, I don't remember, they said you had to have some sort of RV or not, but for my company we've had people in vans. I've had people in a truck that set up a little tent village because again, they needed someone and they liked this person. And so I wouldn't say let that constrain you. All these places, because you are cleaning restrooms, so you have access to a restroom, which makes it nice. But there isn't a specific regulation, at least for the company I worked, that they held by.
My first year was in a minivan, and my second year was in a road trek. My partner pulled a small cargo trailer that he lived out of. This lady had her hand up forever.
Go right ahead.
Single or partner?
Yeah, that's a great question. She asked if you could do it solo or if you had to be part of a couple. Both are options out there because they have plenty of campgrounds that need 2 people. If it's 80 sites, they're going to need 2 or 3 people. But my campgrounds have always been right around 30 sites. One person can usually handle. And so there are plenty of those positions that are available. Later, but I wanted to hit on a couple other jobs out there that are options, because not everybody wants to be a campground host, right? I mean, there are other opportunities out there. So I just wanted to kind of hit on those, although we may not have direct experience, we know they exist and we can speak a little bit to it. And we can at least give you something to start researching on your own.
I'll start off because this blends into the campground host, and one of the jobs that part of my contract was I had to work with Idaho and do boat inspections. I worked on a lake, and that was part of my job. I had to do boat inspections, and I got paid through the state of Idaho. And I know that they are typically looking for people to do boat inspections for invasive species. They're trying to keep the invasive species out of their pristine lakes, and so every single boat that comes in from out of state must be inspected for mussels and invasive flora and fauna. So that is a job that I've got paid on the side. It's 10 hours a day, 4 days a week, if you're doing it full time. And it is through the Department of Agriculture in Idaho. And they hire seasonal workers to train and man these inspection stations across Idaho.
And so kind of going along somewhat with that, just the campground hosting thing, Other things you can do is maybe work at a camp store, or you could give tours if it's a, let's say, a national historic landmark or something. So those can be done through the national parks, national landmarks. You have other options, and again, we talked about state parks are an option as well. So there are many options out there through the concessionaires.
And also the like Brian was saying, there's a lot of little small, like the counties, they'll have little historic sites where they want somebody to give tours or be guides, and they're willing to find a spot for your rig and pay you a small amount of money so that you can teach other people about the local area and about this historic site, this historic gold mining town, or wherever.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next big work opportunity that everybody hears about is the Amazon workforce. This is a job that usually happens, I think, September, October, November. No, December too. Maybe not September. But it's usually leading up to the holiday seasons in December. And so during that time, they bring on a bunch of people to work in the warehouses. I have never personally done this, and maybe when we go to the question and answers section, if anybody has experience with these sort of jobs, we would love to have you come up to the mic and tell us your experience with them. I've known a lot of people that have done the Amazon workforce. They loved it. It's a lot of work as far as you're on your feet all day. Usually, I don't remember if they're 8, 10, 12-hour shifts. Probably just depends. 10-hour shifts, this gentleman is saying. And so it can be a long day, but they typically pay for your site or give you a stipend to help pay for your site. And there are other advantages to that. They also hire a ton of people and for a short amount of time. So it's a very attractive thing for people who are living on the road.
Okay. Well, there's
I can't quite hear that. I don't know if they were talking to us or not. Do you know anything about the Amazon workforce?
I do not. I've had a couple friends who have worked at Amazon, and the hours are long and the work is hard. And that was pretty much all I got out of them, and that they would never do it again.
The one person I knew that did it was Becky Shade. She was Interstellar Orchard, and she did it, I think, for 4 or 5 years. She loved it. She was such a big fan of it, and so it was a very positive experience for her. But again, I've kind of heard the same. I've heard either people like, oh, I will totally do it again, or not my thing.
I have heard that it's physically demanding. So the person that told me that they would never do it again was physically a little more frail, so that may have played into it.
And since we're talking about physical work, the next big item is the beet harvest. Yes. If you love the cold, if you're from Minnesota, Wisconsin, you'll love this job. It typically happens in September, October, I believe.
Right, because it feeds beet harvest, and then you're done with that, and then you go right into Amazon.
Yes, I forgot about that. People can just do that circuit. And then honestly, if they did those 2 jobs, though, they would be good for the rest of the year. They would have no problem, as far as finances. They could make a lot of money in those 3 or 4 months. The beet harvest, there is a video on Cheap RV Living that Bob did with DigiKey and the people that do the beet harvest hiring. It was very informative. I'd recommend you guys go check out that video. There's also tons of other people that have information online about these. And again, hopefully someone in the crowd has done it and they can come up and speak to this. We would love that. But again, it is physical work. It's 12-hour shifts typically. You are getting paid good money, and it usually lasts only 2, maybe 3 weeks, but you're working your butt off. And so if you're up for that challenge, then it could be a really, really good job. And I don't believe there's any kind of age limit, so you have people of all ages doing it.
One thing to consider in this is if you have animals, you will be gone from them for 12 hours a day. So that's something to take in consideration.
Yeah, and that was one of the deterrents for me, besides just the gas money to get up there. It wasn't very feasible for me, but with the animal thing, I have heard that sometimes maybe a spouse of the other person that's working, that maybe is not working themselves, would go around and you could kind of hire them to walk your dog during the day, or let them out or whatnot. So people kind of helped each other out because, again, in our nomadic community, we're a community. We help each other out, and so it's not unusual for that to happen. So there are workarounds, of course, but it is something to consider. And it could be cold. Again, they usually pay for a site, but it could be cold weather. It could be down in the 30s at night and maybe a high in the 50s or 60s during the day, but it can get chilly. And so if you're not prepared for that cold weather aspect of it, it may not be a great option for you. And they're usually in, I think, North Dakota, Minnesota, and they just started in Michigan as well.
Now, I don't know. Do you have to be self-contained, or can you go in?
Actually, this just came up in the video I watched yesterday. They did say that you had to have certain aspects. You had to have a bed, a table for some reason. I don't know the table part. I think maybe a bathroom. You had to have certain components to it. But again, you'd want to check with the individual hiring people about that. I don't know how they check that. I don't know if they're like doing a search of your van or not, but yeah, right. A table was the weirdest thing. I'm like, why does that make a difference? Who has a table? But again, you'd want to check with those employers. Okay, so moving on from those two, a couple of the other random ones that I've heard about over the years. A gate guard. They have a lot of those down at the oil fields in Texas. Yep, you can be a gate guard. I don't know if they require a couple doing those, but again, you're just being a presence there on site. You might be checking trucks in. I've known a couple of friends that have done it, and they said, "Hey, it was good money. We'll never do it again, though." So, do you have any experience with gate guards or know anyone?
No, the only time I have experience with gate guard is when I came up against one and they said, "I'm sorry, this is no longer a public road. You have to turn around and drive 40 miles back on the dirt road. Goodbye."
So you were not a fan of that gate guard.
She was very polite and she said, "Oh, Google sent you here. Don't pay attention to that anymore."
Yeah, be careful with Google sometimes. Another thing is the pumpkin patch, Christmas tree stand, and fireworks stands. Again, I've heard these are very lucrative options for you out there. I've never personally done it. I have a friend, him and his wife have done it, and they did a great job. They made a ton of money doing it. For me personally, I think it'd be fun to work at one, but their position is you were actually managing people. They had to hire their own staff. I've done management in the past, and I'm kind of done with that. So it's nothing that I want to be a worker bee. I don't want to be a manager. And so it did not appeal to me personally, but you can make some good money. And the pumpkin patch actually sounds like a blast, honestly. Like, because there's the corn maze, and you have like little rides for kids and stuff, and it could be a blast. Or not.
Depends if you like children. Lots of small children, lots of children. Personally, I'm done.
I could understand. I don't have kids, so I'm just an uncle, so I don't know. I
Uncle has a whole different mindset.
Absolutely.
So do we want to, we've got like 15 minutes left. Do we want to throw it open for questions?
Yeah, before we do questions, I just have a couple other quick ones. Well, let's move on to how to find these jobs. And the big thing is the Big Tent Show, which starts tomorrow. That is all these people that are hiring for their summer seasonal work camping jobs. They're going to be there tomorrow. Go check it out, stand in line, put in your application, make a connection. The best jobs get taken up early, so just kind of keep that in mind. But the other thing to keep in mind is that I came on mid-season, well, not mid-season, but I was a late hire. We always have availability. Don't be afraid. It's never too late to apply. Every season we have people quit. We have people leave. It's
no shows. I got my first year I got hired because somebody didn't show up. So a week into it, they said, "Please come," and I was there.
Yeah, and so it's never too late to apply, but do go to the Big Tent Show tomorrow. If you can't go to the Big Tent Show tomorrow, you don't have luck there, you can always look on websites like Coolworks. There are other websites out there, Work Camper News.
Other ones I got.
Let's see. Did you okay.
Workers on Wheels, Work Camper, Cool Works are the three that I've had luck with.
Or if you're in an area and you want to be, let's say, in some city for a month, you could go through a temp agency. You know, if you want to just do a quick gig as something, it gets you a little cash, and then you can move on. That's also another option for you. So any kind of temp agency. I would recommend that you put in an online application, because that's how everything is going these days, but follow up with a phone call or an email personally just to see if they received it, or kind of be a bug in their ear, because sometimes those are the ones that get you jobs.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are kind of the main ones. The last thing I'll leave you with before we go to the questions is be honest with your employer and what your needs are. If you are a person that you have to have cell service, there are jobs out there that have no cell service. One of my summers, actually 6 of my summers, I had to drive out to get cell service. It was only a couple miles, but I did not have cell service at my camper. And so keep that in mind. If that is important to you and that doesn't work for you, let them know. Your employers will know if a certain area has those, like it has internet service, what it's like, if it's a party place. Be honest with them and be honest with yourself of what you can handle. If you need full hookups, let them know that. Yeah, I had solar. I didn't care about the hookups.
Yeah, I didn't care about the hookups. I had solar. My campground actually had solar built in.
Oh, cool.
So they had solar. They gave me a propane stipend. Some of the sites had big propane tanks for the rigs, and some of them had electricity. I had none. They delivered water to me because I needed water, and there was no water hookup, but they delivered it.
Yeah, and I've had similar situations. Sometimes no water, sometimes water. But if I didn't have water, they would deliver it to me. Same situation.
Makes a big difference.
Absolutely. So, okay, so that kind of ends our yammering on portion. So now it's on to you guys. If you have a question, if you feel like it, please come on up to the mic. It'll be a lot easier for everyone else to hear. I can probably only hear the first 2 or 3 rows, but if you yell at us, we might be able to hear it and I can repeat it. But we would love for you to come on up and just talk into the mic and help us out.
Yep.
Sure. The websites, go ahead.
I've got Cool Work.
Yeah, so she said Cool Works, and just like it sounds.
Workersonwheels.com, all one word.
There's Work Camper, and Work Camper, you remove the C in camper, and so it's just the K in work.
Yeah. WORKAMPER.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the big ones that I use.
A couple things I didn't mention, there's also, if you want to do caretaking, if you want to caretake a house, that's an option, and the Caretaker Gazette would be your resource for that. And if you want to work on an organic farm, there's WWOOFing, the Worldwide Organization of Organic Farms, where you volunteer in exchange for room and board, essentially. But again, those are more offshoots, but they can be fun if you're interested in farming or animals.